Hi, our project is on Chapter 8 on outsourcing. My name is Jenn Federico.
I'm Krystal Ozdinski.
I'm Breanna, Timas.
All right, to start off, we're going to just introduce you to the topic of outsourcing. It's also known as make or buy decision, and this is where managers have to decide whether or not to buy a product or service from an outside source or to go through in-house operations. Overall, this decision comes down to determining how best to use the available resources that a company has. One way that you can decide whether or not to use outsourcing, companies often use the decision rule, and this is based on incremental costs, which are the costs associated with one additional unit of production. If the incremental cost of making a good yourself exceeds the incremental cost of outsourcing, then you would typically find yourself in the position to outsource. On the other hand, if the incremental cost of making a good yourself is less than the incremental cost of outsourcing the good, you would typically not outsource. Now, Krystal is going to talk about our question.
Okay, for our presentation, we had to pick an article on outsourcing, and we found one about the company Mattel. And we have to answer 4 questions, and I will be answering the first 2. Question number 1 is to describe the company that is making the decision to outsource. What area of the business is the company looking to outsource, or did it already outsource? And number 2 is why did the company decide to outsource? So Mattel is the world's largest toy maker, and they produce Barbie dolls, Hot Wheels, Fisher-Price, and among other toys. And the technicians in Mattel's test lab are setting Chicken Dance Elmo dolls on fire and wrecking Hot Wheel cars because they're being paid to break toys and analyze the raw materials that go into them. And Mattel has decided to outsource because of warnings and recalls on products in China. The company's outsourcing about 65% of its toys in China, and the company owns the plants that produce its most popular goods. And Mattel's goal is to protect young children from the harm that poor construction of toys and their components can bring to them. And Breanna will be talking about question number 3.
Question 3 asks us to list revenues and costs that might be impacted by the outsourcing decision. I'm only going to touch on a few of them because there are quite a few revenues and costs that would be impacted. Some expenditures include a high exchange rate, cost of transportation from the outsourcing location to the home location, or training of new employees, which can sometimes be difficult because of a language barrier in other countries. There can be many hidden costs that come with outsourcing, and one very large one can be the company's reputation. Mattel, for example, was a pioneer in outsourcing in the 1990s, but along with their pioneering came many downfalls. And in 2007, there were recalls on toys with lead paint in them, and there were other instances like this, such as them being accused of child labor. And these are all large issues that other companies have to deal with when outsourcing as well. And another issue that can affect a company's reputation is that many call centers are being outsourced to other countries. With the rise of technology, companies are looking for ways to provide help to their customers who need help with products, but sometimes there is a language barrier, and this can cause companies to lose customers. At the same time, many companies take the risk of outsourcing, and there are many benefits to revenues that come from outsourcing. Top outsourcers include IBM, Dell, Mattel, and other numerous companies. And benefits include when they buy a product or service instead of making it in-house, a company reduces a lot of the overhead costs like property tax, rents, utilities, that all come with having a new factory. And in essence, outsourcing is a way of converting fixed costs into variable costs. And this is great for businesses that don't want to incur large costs immediately, which would be the cost of manufacturing their own items, and instead they choose to buy them. Managers also can hire specialized workers, and it allows the focus to be turned on other aspects of their business that allow for development and future revenues.
All right, and now I'm going to be talking about the last question, and it states, list the qualitative factors that could influence the company's decision whether to outsource the business operation or not. And as it sounds by its name, a qualitative factor relates to and measures the quality of a company and its products. And along with the revenues and expenditures, these factors can also help decide whether to stay in-house or to outsource. So after reading up on Mattel and the problems that they're facing with outsourcing, we came up with a few quality factors because, again, there are so many. One that plays a big role is the work mix, and this is talking about how fast you're able to turn a job. So if you need to produce a large amount of products in a short amount of time, that's something you're going to look at. One factory might have the facilities to better handle that, producing at a higher rate. Also, the quality control of products and supplies is a huge factor. You want to make sure that the raw materials going into your products are as best as they can be. And this is something that Mattel looks at. They, as said before, that they inspect every raw material that goes into their goods. Also, it's a concern whether or not they're putting out an imitation good. If their supplies are not up to a certain code of standard, it's technically not considered trademarked for them. So that's something that they need to take in consideration. The safety of working conditions for their workers and the safety of the products that they're actually being made. A safer working condition can produce a more efficient work environment, so that's definitely something a company would take a lot of interest in. Also, being able to employ skillful engineers who will create the highest quality of product, and not only just hiring them, but retaining them as well is something that a company looks for. And if you skip over any of these qualitative factors, it can cut costs, but by doing so, you're also sacrificing the quality in the long run. So it's just something to take into consideration again. As you can see, deciding whether or not to outsource is not an easy decision. There's many different factors that go into the decision process. And even though there's lots of things to take into account, more and more companies today are finding themselves outsourcing due to costs or just other aspects that they find suitable for their company. And this is, as it's on a rise, more and more people are losing their jobs. So it's kind of interesting to see how that is being affected. And that includes our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.